Started a while ago when God was showing me same thing Prophet Scott was saying before, that it was a change of pace. It's a changing of momentum of how we're supposed to move and things are supposed to happen. And the trials and tests that would come. And it kind of caught me off guard for a minute because I didn't see it coming this way, but I know it was needed. So I like to start off by going to Judges chapter 7, verses 4 through 7. Judges chapter 7, verses 4 through 7. All right, everybody there? All right. It says, but the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Then it will be that whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, the same shall go with you. And whoever I say to you, this one shall not go, the same shall not go. So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, everyone who laps from the water with his tongue as a dog laps, you shall set apart by himself. Likewise, everyone who gets down on his knee to drink. And the numbers of those who lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. But all the rest of the people who got down on their knees to drink the water. Then the Lord said to Gideon, by the 300 men who lapped, I will save you and deliver you from the Midianites into your land, into your hand. Let all the other people go, every man to his place. All right, y'all may have your seats. I began to search for a title, and I came up with like 10 of them. And I asked God, like, which one do you want me to use? He was like, none. Tell them, deal, don't laugh. So in order to understand this, we got to go a chapter back. So we'll go back to chapter 6, and this is where we find where God had the children of Israel were living evil among God. And worshiping Baal and Ashtoreth, which are a male and a female deity, supposed to be like the sun god and the moon god, and it's supposed to be the fertility deity and stuff like that. So they were worshiping them instead of worshiping God. So as you, okay, just like how we do when we go out and we sin. A lot of times God's going to take his hand and he's going to step back. If that's what you really want to do, go ahead. I'm going to let you go. And whatever you fall into is what you fall into. Well, this time the children fell into the hands of Midianites. So he allowed them to fall into the hand of Midianites, and the Midianites pretty much had their way with them. It was almost as if they came in and took over everything. Like it got to the point to where every time they were getting ready to do their crops, or as soon as their crops would be ready for harvest, the Midianites and I know, yeah, Amalekites, yeah, they come down and they would take over. It's almost like somebody coming into your house, eat up all your food, watching all your TV, use up all your electricity, drinking up all your Kool-Aid. That's what they would do. And after they were said and done, they would leave. So it got to a point where the children of Israel got tired, and they finally got to a place where they realized if anything's going to happen, God's got to be the one to save us. So what they did is they cried out to God, but God had sent them a prophet before. And if you can go to Judges 6, verses 8 through 10, he sent them a prophet, and this is what he said to them. Now, I want you to watch all the ands that he did, just to make sure you understood every single thing he showed that I done for them. That the Lord sent a prophet to the children of Israel who said to them, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought you up from Egypt and brought you out of the house of bondage. And I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians. And out of the hand of all those who oppressed you, and drove them out before you, and gave you their land. Also I said unto you, I am the Lord your God. Do not fear the gods of the Amorites. In those lands you dwell, but you have not obeyed my voice. So God brought that back to me, and I asked him, well, how does that make sense present day now? And he said, look at the world the way it is now. Everybody's believing in religions they want to believe in, trying to do things they want to go do. And when everything goes wrong, now all of a sudden I'm important. When the word says, seek me first, people get it opposite, and they back it up, and they figure they can do what they want to do. And then when everything goes wrong, then they want to blame God for it, or get mad at God because it's not going the way we thought it was going to go. And I was a person that really did that a lot. And I can't say I don't know more, because I still fall in traps sometimes too. And it's to a point now where God has to find someone. So the leaders inside of ministries, like for instance, we have Bishop. God had to look all the way through the camp of Israel to find a savior, or to find somebody that he could use for a leader to get them out of where they were with the Midianites. So he finds Gideon, and he finds him in a weird place. He finds him inside of a wine press, but he's beating wheat, trying to separate the chaff from the grain. The key element you need to this is the wind. But everything was so bad that if he took it outside, the minute he beat it and separated grain from the chaff, the Midianites and everybody would come through and grab it. So in order for him to do this, he had to go inside of a cave or inside underground to get this thing done. So you can only imagine how much wind, or how much he had to constantly keep tossing this up in the air to try to get this wind to kick up somehow, some way to separate it. But if we go to verse 11, can we put it up, please? We find where it says, now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree, which was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress in order to hide it from the Midianites. Next verse. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, the Lord is with you, mighty man of valor. Next verse. And Gideon said to him, O Lord, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? And where are his miracles, which the fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us to the hand of the Midianites. So I read the scripture, and I had to read it about 5 or 6 times to really get an understanding. Because the question I had to ask was, why did Gideon, out of all people, if you know you're wrong, why would you ask that question? So I asked God, was Gideon really found as bad as everybody else? Or was it someone you had to go search to find that probably was living life right and needed someone to help him out? So God was like, this is one of the people I had to find. And this is why I selected him, because he was living his life the right way. So because of this, there's stuff that happened in his life, I'm sure, that led up to this point. He's watching people serving Baal, serving Ashtoreth, and he's looking at him like, but this is not who you're supposed to be serving. You're supposed to be serving God. So because of this, all this has come upon him. And now he's living with somebody else's mess. So now he's like, this isn't fair to me, but he's asking the question. Where is this God that everybody's been talking about that can save us from all this stuff? Where is he? Why is he not here? Why is he not showing himself mighty to us? So in God's response, I believe it was verse 13 or 14. Then the Lord turned to him and said, go in the might of yours, and you shall have Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? So he gave Gideon he gave him a commission to go do now. So now he has a responsibility of getting Israel from the Midianites. So now what he says is really funny, because as I sat there and I thought about it, every time God says something to me, the first thing I look at is everything that I'm not, instead of everything that I am. So he tells me I got to go do this. I'm looking at him. I'm looking at God like, me? Do you know what I did just a couple of months ago? Do you know what I did about a year ago? Do you know? Yeah, yesterday. I mean, I'm not the person you think I am. And then I had to realize I got to stop looking at me the way I look at me and look at me the way that God looks at me. So even though all the stuff you may go through may not be your fault, the question is, if you're given an assignment, can you take it and can you run with it? Because in the end, the reward is a lot greater. And I promise you, everything you went through is going to be worth it in the end. So in order for God to actually set everything up, he had to destroy the Baal and the Ashtoreth. So what he told Gideon to do was go get a calf that was 7 years old, which represented the years that they were in bondage during this time. So he had to tear down the altar of Baal and the pole of Ashtoreth that's right by it. And he had to use the wood of the Ashtoreth and create an altar to burn to replace Baal, to show that God's a real true God. So this is where everything started from. So after we go from there, we go to where the next thing you see is they brought everybody out to Herod's well. And if you ever look up the word Herod means trembling. And this is exactly what everybody was doing. 32,000 people trembling because no one really wanted to go on this mission. No one wanted to go and fight the Midianites because they felt like they were going to lose, because if they've been taking everything up from them up to this point, we really don't have no way to win. So God had to sit back and he's like, okay, we got to dwindle this down. Because if I take all these guys and y'all actually win, it's going to be bad. So he told Gideon right off the bat, he said, hey, tell the people that don't want to go, if you don't want to come with us, go home. So they departed. And after they got done with this, he came down to the point of where there were still too many people. So God took him down to, he told him, you don't have to test them, let me do it. And this is where, when you're given an assignment, this is where God steps in and he begins to help you out through your time. And it's really funny because for me, because even with the job I'm in now, it's really weird, but it's not really weird. I can't use that word no more. It's really God that I'm put in the place that I'm in. Because I have a lot of people that always try to come and question what I do, where I go, why do I believe what I believe, and everything else. And they'll try to come and they kind of do it real kind of subtle with it. And I don't understand what my position or what my job is there is to win them over to God. But I can't do it the same way they do it, so I have to come out the way God wants me to do it. So as I sit back and I watch, it's a lot of people that come at me with different angles. So I can't automatically respond to everything that I see right off the bat. I have to step back and look. And it's pretty much what he's doing with Gideon. He took Gideon and stepped him back. But there's always people around you that can help you. You just got to know who's who. But you can't find out who's who until the test comes. So the test comes at the water. So he brings them down to the water, and he tells them, everyone that laps as a dog, you can't take them. But everyone that gets down and kneels, scoops their hand up, scoops the water with their hand and brings it to their mouth, those are who you bring with them. So as I watched it, read it, I had to ask myself again, like, what is the purpose of this? Like, why water? So we just came back from a cruise, and there's a lot of things God showed me with water. It can quench your thirst. It can provide nourishment for plants. It can cause things to be washed, be cleansed, be clean. It also represents His word. So, standing out on the balcony of our ship, I looked around. I seen a whole lot of water, and I asked God, like, is this really your word? He said, yes, every bit of it. And He said, the funny thing is that people can't even articulate what they actually see, because that's how deep God really is with His word. So I kept looking at this verse again, and I kept asking, like, okay, water. What does water represent? So He began to show me. And from the time he called me to be a prophet to everything I had to endure. And he said, you had test after test after test after test. He said, so the water represents everything that ever tempts you. Can you get down to this water and be able to drink of what tests you, but keep your eyes on me as you're doing it? So as you're sitting and you're kneeling, you're still watching everything that goes on. And I was looking up yesterday trying to find a perfect picture for this. And I ended up finding, I think it was an impala. It bent down on his knees and it bent down into the water, but his head was still looking straight forward and they could see everything around him as it was drinking the water. But in the background, you see an alligator coming into the water trying to come after him. So the only way he would see this threat come after him is if he was paying attention. So that way he knew when to back up and when to move out the way. So the same thing comes now. And the reason why he showed me this is because where we're going now. I had to God gave me a word to give the bishop when we were at the pastor summit. And it was dealing with this about the 300 people. And as you can see, we're not many in number, but we do a whole lot with what we have. And he needs a faithful few. He doesn't need everybody around because just like how he said in here, if I send too many people, they're going to boast in themselves and say, I did this. This is what God does not need to happen. So we started, and he just went back and showed me all kind of stuff when as far as National Day of Prayer for one, where we started making marks and where we started popping up on the blimp. And when people start noticing who we are, everybody to redirects them back to Jesus. Because we know it's not about us. And everybody knows where this place is, and you'll hear it all the time. Yeah, I'm going to come visit y'all. Yeah, I'm going to come see y'all. No one's here yet because they don't want to accept what's coming with it. You can see what it is. The writing's already on the wall. When God selects a group of people, there's nothing you can do to stop them. And if you're coming with the wrong intentions, it's not going to work. So for this time coming right now, God was showing me that the mission that's at hand, we have to be tested to make sure that we can actually handle this mission. That it's not about us, that we can give up ourselves, that we can die to ourselves, but keep him the main focus. And this is the biggest thing we have to deal with right now. And it's hard to die to self. It's hard not to understand what's really going on in your life and to trust someone you can't see. And when you look around and it seems like everything's falling to your left and to your right, it looks like there's no way it's going to happen. There's no way it's going to work. So I got to thinking, and I thought about Pastor Cooley and everything he had to go through. And I thought about the same thing I had to go through when they tried to put me out the army. Everything that I went through, it looked like as if nothing was going to go right. It went all the way down to the day, 2 days before I was supposed to get out the army, that everything finally got approved for me to stay in. And you talking about people looking at you, calling you crazy, thinking you don't lost your mind. And it was like this. When you get to a certain point in the army, you have 90 days. You have to start preparing to get out the army, which means you have to go to a separation briefing, start going to all these different things that help you give transition to the outside world. But not only that, you have to do an ETS award or end of service award, and you have to do your final report card or saying what you've done. So for me, they were calling me all the time, talking about, hey, man, I need your award. Hey, man, I need your NCOER. Hey, man, I need this. What you going to do when you get out? And I kept telling them, I'm not going nowhere. There's no point in me writing this if I'm not going anywhere. So they were like, well, you've been in the Army for about 14 years now. I said, I know. They said, well, you need to write an award. You trying to tell me there's nothing you've done? I said, okay, this is how much I'm going to show you how much I trust God. I'm going to take the lowest award you can possibly ever give me for all the stuff that I know I've done in the Army. So you're going to give me a certificate of achievement and say, thank you for your 14 years of service. And I would take that and walk out the Army if God's not going to say what he's going to do. So, like I said before, it went all the way down to 2 days prior to me getting ready to get out the military. And everything came back approved. You could stay in. So, it was a lot of days I didn't know what was going to happen. There were days I was in the shower crying like a baby, asking God, like, what are you doing? What are you showing me? What are you trying to do? And there were days no one knew how you felt. And it's like you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, God, I know you're there. You got to show me something, because if you don't show me something, I'm about to give up. And it's like I'm right there, and like that song say, "Don't push me because I'm close to the edge." That's what I felt like. I felt like I was right there. Like if there's one more thing that happens, it's a wrap. And it came all the way to the point of that, for God to finally show me, I got you no matter what. And every time I start going through something, that's what He always reminds me of. So when I hear other people go through it, I start to laugh, because I can't say I know exactly how you feel, but I know how you feel. So this is what the Midianites had to follow or see in this. And to think about going from 32,000 to 300 people, and God said, okay, this is who you're going to take. That's a scary feeling, because the Midianites, it's three different groups of people now. You got to fight with 300 people. And you're like, how in the world am I going to feed all these people? Let's just say that they were equal to the number of people in Israel. So that's 32,000 times three. So that's close to almost 100,000 people you got to fight with only 300 people. So you talking about the odds stacked against you? Yes, that's the greatest place to be, because that's when God can show Himself mightily even more. And that's why throughout this whole story, that's what it started showing me. Like, it never said once that Gideon was scared. All he asked was to reaffirm what you told me. He did it with the fleece. First time he set the fleece out and asked, make everything out there dry and soak the fleece. He said it was so much moisture in the fleece, it filled up a whole bowl of water. The next time he said, let me use the same fleece. I'm going to set it back out again. And let me see everything outside be completely wet and dew, and the fleece be completely dry. He went back out and tested it again, and it's exactly what happened. The funny thing I found was, before this, when God first started talking to him, He told him, let me prepare my sacrifice. So he left, and when he came back with the sacrifice, it never said what he went to go grab. But ahead of time, the angel already knew what he had and told him where to set it and what to do with it. So if that by itself didn't tell you that God's already with you, that's a sign for itself. So I started watching, and I was paying attention to what God was doing with this, and I started watching here. And even the people that went into the water, it's not saying that they would never, ever get a chance to get retested again and be on their knee. Because I know there's many times that Bishop said, hey, we're going to go here and we're going to do this. And when he looked around, there wasn't a lot of people there with him. It may only been 2 people, maybe 3 people that was with him, but he still had to go do it. And I look back at that and I was like, I missed the mark. And it's not about you beating yourself up, but recognizing where you are. And that's what I liked about Gideon. Gideon always spoke and said, this is where I am. This is who I am. And if you can use me here, it's almost a sign of humility, or it was a sign of humility, him telling God who I am. This is where I am right now. Because I can locate where I am for you to take me where you got to take me. But if I don't even know where I am, how can I go where I need to go? Because I don't even know what I need. So this is what God was showing me through all this. He said, always know where you are. It's like having a GPS. We call it GPS. But when we go places, you always plug that coordinate of where you're going into that GPS. And no matter where you're going, it's always showing you where you are to where you got to go. And a lot of times, God's going to tell you this is what you have to do, but He doesn't tell you the in between. Because a lot of times, if I tell you what's in between, you're not going to go. So one thing I had to learn was stop asking the question of how or why, because you might not want to know. And if you find out, will you still stay? And I believe that some people started believing that, or they started thinking about that when they got to that water. And that's why their focus wasn't focused on God. It was focused on that water. So they got separated because they got distracted by what could possibly happen and everything else, and their fears. And instead of trusting God, they trusted in what they seen. Instead of trusting in what they couldn't see, taking them to where they couldn't see they were going to go, but would arrive to. So through all this, the next phase is coming. And that's my thing to tell y'all. And I didn't want to have to say it, but it's coming faster than what you think. The tests are coming, and it's just like they said, the devil's coming to steal, kill, and to destroy. But everybody thinks that when he comes, he's always trying to kill you. He's not. His whole thing is time. If I know you're supposed to be at a certain place by 10 o'clock, and I stop you before 10 o'clock, I didn't have to kill you then. I just delayed you enough to miss what you needed to have. And that's what's going on right now. And it's attack on everybody. Everybody that claims the name of Christ, this is what's going on. I'm delaying you and putting roadblocks in your place, and I'm using what you like as the roadblock. Everything that tempts you, everything that you like, your lust, your desires is what I'm using to stop you. And it even says in the word that we're drawn away by our own lustful desires. So if he knows what it takes to get you away, that's what he's going to use. And that's why it's so hard now for people to say, this is where I am. This is what I'm dealing with. This is where I hurt. This is where I know if someone comes in this way, I'm going to fall. Because everybody wants to seem like they're good. Everybody doesn't have to be good, but they have to have God. And as long as we keep that in focus, everything else will always fall into place. It's about to be a huge separation. It's going to be ugly. There are so many people right now that claim the name of Christ that are about to be embarrassed. And not embarrassed because of them, but embarrassed because of him. The whole point is to get everybody here to stop believing in God. It started from the pulpit, lustful desires. If I can get the people in this pulpit to screw everything up, I don't have to do nothing else. And this is why people are the way they are right now. Is the gospel and the way it's been presented messed up? Yes. There's a lot of pastors that butchered and use their own isms and schisms or whatever they wanted to use to try to make this word fit what they wanted to fit. And now people are paying the price because now they haven't seen the damage of what they've done. But I hate to see them at judgment, and they got to look back and see what happened. It's like planting a whole bunch of bad seeds, and you know what's horrible, and you know what's bad. You're not supposed to do it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And then you see every bit of fruit that comes from that plant or from that tree. And then the people that go eat from that tree all get sick. Some of them die. Some of them get really, really sick to the point they're about to die. And now it's up to us, which is what the real mission is, to go back and represent Jesus in a way to where we show what true love really is. This is why I liked your message so much on Wednesday. Because if people really understood what love really covers, when it said love covers a multitude of sins, it is not joking. Because there's times where I have to brag on you, Bishop. I've been a hard-headed dude, I'll put it like that. Prophets are really, really hard-headed. And we do things and we say what we're going to do, and we can talk the talk and walk the walk. And sometimes it's like, you know what? I'm going to try this anyway and see what's going to happen. And it wasn't, I can speak for me. Every time I've ever messed up, the love I've always received for Bishop and Lady Collins, even Pastor Cooley and Lady Cooley, has always been genuine. And if it wasn't for that, it'd have been so easy to walk away. But when someone loves you to the point to where no matter what you do, they'll love you and they won't ever take it back, you can't walk away from that. You can't. And even if you try, everything in you is going to start kicking you in your head and kicking you in your butt, and everything else can kick you in to get you to understand what you're about to do. Because I can truly say, if it wasn't for the love that they shown me, I had a real distorted view of what love I thought love really was. Because the teacher that I had that taught me didn't really understand it either. So because the teacher was wrong and he imparted in me what I thought love was, what he thought love was to me, I'm walking with a false sense of what love really is. So everything I'm trying to show to everybody else is the same thing. It's tainted, it's ugly, it's not true. So now this is what we have to learn, especially here within this ministry, because the task ahead is not easy. But that's why all the turmoil, the stress, the trying times have came, because the people that need to walk away walked. God did the separate. He had to do nothing else. And what I can tell you is this: Bishop loves everybody, but he's not going to hold you against your own will. He loves you enough to let you make your own decision. So if you're going to go, he's going to love you still. Say, okay, I'll see you later. Give you a hug, pat you on your head, pat you on your butt, and send you on out the way. But I wonder what happens when they walk and they realize stuff is not right. You ever had something good, and after you walk away from something good, you realize how good you really had it? In the military, they say that you never appreciate your unit until you get to your next unit. Because you're being a unit and stuff may be really, really jacked up, but there's a lot of stuff that's going good and you don't really pay attention to it until you after you leave and you hear that blues. Well, in my last unit, in my last place, we did this, and my last place we did this, and this sounded like this. You sound like a parakeet. Like a lot of people that come from Fort Bragg or 82nd Airborne, all you hear is they always make fun of things like back and brag, but that's all they talk about. Because they love that place so much, but you never realize it until after you leave it. Like they say, you never miss a well till it's dry. This next phase is like strategically important, because this is where a lot of the seeds had to be planted. And it may not be that the day you talk to this person, they're going to give their life to Christ, but you have to impart. And I don't care what the situation looks like. You may be the one to plant the seed, maybe the one that's watering. But understand that God's going to get that increase, but you have to do your part. Because just like our pastor Hooley said, you never want to get to heaven. You want to hear well done, not what happened. Because if you have to hear what happened, you got to do what they call duffel bag drag. You're on your way out. Going to a place you ain't never want to see. The worst thing you ever want to do is live a life to where you're thinking that everything is right. And you get to heaven and you hear, depart from me. So you just wasted all your life living a lie to get to heaven, thinking you're good, to find out you've been lying to yourself the whole time. And that's the worst place to be, to lie to yourself. Because once you lie to yourself, everything else is going to fall apart. Because you'll believe everything in the world. You'll tell everybody, this is what I did, this is what happened, this is what's going on. And everybody knows the truth. But you're still talking about, no, this is not what happened, this is what happened. Like, all right, cool. Just like how kids get in trouble. I'm going to use me, for example. When I was a kid, my mom would know I get in trouble in school. So I would come home and she'd be like, okay, so what happened in school today? I'm like, nothing. You sure nothing happened in school today? Yeah, nothing happened, Mom. I'm good. So why does teacher call me? You're like, so the next thing you know, you got to get the bill. So there'll be days I'll come home and my mom like, so what happened in school today? She has no idea what happened. So in my mind, I'm like, do I tell the truth or do I lie? Because if I lie and she tells me the truth of what really happened, I'm finna get it. Maybe if I tell the truth, I get out of trouble. So I'm like, yeah, Mom, this happened. Well, I didn't even know that happened. Go get the belt anyway. And I'm like, man, this don't make any sense to me, so what's going on? But the fact you tell that truth, you don't have to live in that lie no more. Once it's out, it's there. And that's part of why, even with Gideon saying where he was, there was never a struggle no more after that. Once you get that point out of where you are, what's going on with you, what you're dealing with, what you're stressed out with, or what's dealing with you, it no longer has power over your life no more. Because now you've exposed it. And the minute you expose it, now it can only get better from here. Because now, after you put it out there, you say, okay, God, this is what I'm dealing with. here. And that's where the cycle starts. It's not going to get better like that because you have to work that process out to get it back to where it needs to be. And this is part of why it went from 32,000 to 300. It was a process that had to go through all this. And even when they got to the 300, the tactics that God had to give them to get to the land of or to get to where the camp of the Midianites were, they broke down into 3 different companies. They had pots, they had torches, and they had a trumpet. So when God gives you the assignment to do, it may not make sense. He may tell you go with like 2 people and carry your juju bead and probably one of them the little air horns, just enough to distract somebody. But the point was, they got to where they were going to, and God told them exactly when to attack. But even before that, he showed them exactly what was about to happen. Because he was kind of skeptical and scared about what was about to happen. So he told them, if you don't believe this, take your armor bearer and go into the land of the Midianites. And inside that land of the Midianites, they were talking about a dream. And not only did he hear the dream, he heard the interpretation of the dream. And the interpretation of the dream was so clear to him, he automatically understood what was about to happen. That's what's been going on here. If you don't know how much this ministry's name is out there in the city, you have no idea. There are so many people talking about this place by itself. Even Open Streets, it's like they don't know about what the name of the ministry is. The one with the bouncy house, they really good. That's all I hear all the time. Every time we talk about Open Streets, that's the first thing they automatically acknowledge: the bouncy house, the place with the bouncy house, and all the people that are there, and they're so loving and they're there for everybody. So when he gave them the pots, told them to throw down the pots and blow their horns, and then raise their torches. And they all yelled out for God and for Gideon. And they went in, and they didn't really have to do much, because once they heard it, the confusion was so crazy, God made the Midianites turn their swords on each other. And they did the work for them. So it's just like what Pastor Cooley had to go through. God told him exactly what to do. It may not look like it makes a lot of sense, but when the swords get turned and they're killing each other, you don't have to do nothing but to stand by and get ready to receive your blessing. So this is what I'm encouraging you here now before it even starts. Understand where you are. Acknowledge where you are. Acknowledge where you need God at. And listen for the plan. So when you get to the water, you're not laughing down like a dog, not paying attention to anything, and the enemy comes up and snatches you. But you can look around and see what's going on. So when the enemy comes, you're in the right place at the right time and know when to move and how to evade and how you're supposed to react. That's all I got.